Eric with Patch Foundry. I am excited to announce version 3.0 of the Worship Collection for the Nord Electro 6 releasing today. If you're not familiar with the original Worship Collection for the Nord Electro 6, what this is a collection of 128 patches that are specifically designed for players who are playing in a worship setting like a church. The collection specifically adds all of the elements that you need in order to really shine as a worship keyboard player and puts it in the Nord Electro 6 without needing to have any extra effects, any extra things to download. It's all right there for you. We've included all kinds of amazing grand pianos that have been tweaked specifically to fit in a worship context, upright pianos, electric pianos, pads, anything that you can think of that you will need in a worship setting, it's right here. And the best part of all is you don't need any external effects. You don't need to have a laptop. Everything you need is going to be in your keyboard. This particular collection is really near and dear to my heart. I have worked in Nashville, Tennessee as a professional keyboardist for about 10 years now. And I've spent a lot of time on the road with different contemporary Christian music artists and other genres as well, but specifically that. And all of these are based off of the sounds that I would use with people like Matthew West and Stephen Curtis Chapman and Mac Powell and a lot of these amazing worship leaders. And I've tried to take all of those elements and put it into a really easy to use form here in the Nord Electro 6. Well, rather than have me tell you more about it, let's go ahead and do an in-depth walkthrough of exactly what you're getting.
All right, let's get started. So I've loaded in all 128 patches here. Obviously, there's so much to cover here. I can't really touch on everything without this being like several hours of video. But I'm going to show you the overall philosophy here, some of the highlights, and then we'll kind of just go through how to use this a little bit in a practical way. Now, one thing I'll also add, there's over an hour of training on how to use the Nord Electro 6 that comes free with this collection. And that's super helpful if you've never used a keyboard before or if you're just unfamiliar with the Nord Electro 6. So to start off, we're with the very first patch you'll bring up, which is A11 Grand Piano, and it'll be labeled WC if it's part of our collection, worship collection. And I tried to do all of the obvious things that other designers don't necessarily do that very often, including Nord. And that means like, hey, 90% of the time when I'm playing live in a church, I need a good piano. So I've created a good piano sound. And when I say good, I just mean something that I felt was really usable and applicable in the worship setting, and something that I could just bring up and not worry about anything extra or weird, you know? And it's got some small but important tweaks to it, like I've adjusted the keyboard touch, the string resonance, add a little bit of reverb. All these things like add that polish that you hear on massive records and incredible live recordings. And then the idea is that you can just turn stuff on and add things as you want. So for instance, here, if I turn this on, I've got the Worship Collection basic pad. And I'm sweeping it in with the expression pedal plugged into the back of my keyboard. And you can hear that's just a perfect pad, nothing crazy back behind, but perfect for Sunday. Same with the organ, just... So I can build this out really quickly from something that's very simple there. Now, I've also given a lot of presets here. So this is with the white grand and the sample, the basic pad sample already turned on with a little more reverb. And so you don't have to turn on anything here. You can just bring up this pad. Calm pad. The problem with a lot of pads is they get in the way or there's too much movement. This is not that way. And by the way, all of this content that I'm showing you is 100% original content specifically built for the Nord Electro 6. So if you want, if you have a question about are any of the other packs that we offered available with this collection, the answer is no, because this collection is completely designed to be self-contained. You'll have everything you need. The only reason you'd get the other packs is because you want, like, I don't know, vintage synthesizers, or you want, 5, 6, 7 times the amount of pad sounds that is offered with this collection, which personally I like having a lot of pad options. That's why we offer a lot of packs. So that's what a lot of people have asked. I want to make sure that was clear. The calm pad there, choir. You can hear it just sits really nicely behind that piano. And I can sweep it up with that expression pedal. We've also used Nord's latest factory content here. So we've got the Royal Grand 3D and the White Grand and just a bunch of other cool stuff. We've also worked really, really hard to keep the samples small. I think it's under 22 megabytes for all of the custom samples here, which is just a bit. And then we've created loops that purposely kind of pulse like this. So if you listen, you can hear it sort of loop just a little bit. And that's designed to give you a little bit of movement, but hopefully not too much. And depending on the sample, there's going to be a lot of looping or not at all. Just a big fluffy pad there. These are all the grand pianos we offer. This one's a strike piano. Just a really beautiful pad underneath. There's been a lot of criticism of Nord keyboards over the years because they don't have great pad sounds. And built in, they don't have a lot of options for that, but it's 100% possible to get really great pad sounds. And I've tried to include as many of those as possible. It also drives me crazy when people are not, or have bought like a $4,500 keyboard and using it as a MIDI controller. I know that that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just you can get every sound you would need for most worship scenarios out of a Nord keyboard, depending on the model. And you just have to have the right patches. So save your church like $3,000 and just use a Nord Electro instead of a laptop too. An organ and a piano. My grandmother used to play piano, in a church, and they had a second person playing organ. And I've often thought about how fun it is that now, if we want to, we can have a grand piano and an organ at the same time, just layered up. Felt pianos. These are new in the latest sound library, and they sound so good. Perfect for those quiet moments in worship. Amber upright, another new one in the latest factory content. It's just a nice mid-rangey upright. And just really fun to play. So we've got a lot for each one. And then we have some cool things like a split where you could do a piano like a, and then a cello down here. You can hear how those would just sit together well, or a piano and a string section. So many options. If you notice, there's a lot of piano and uprights here, and the idea is that the Nord Electro 6 is not particularly well suited to doing a lot of synthesizer stuff. And in modern worship, I'm finding more and more churches are just using tracks for a lot of the synth work, for better or worse. And that means you're going to be covering pianos and upright pianos way more than you're going to be covering, say, really complicated arpeggiated parts. At least in my experience playing with a lot of churches and playing with a lot of artists. In fact, when I was out with this artist named Matthew West last year, I found myself playing more just pianos and like some uprights, and leaving a lot of the synth stuff in tracks just because it worked better live. And that was just, not necessarily like even a choice I made. It was just sort of the default of the position. So again, we're trying to serve the church that we're in. We're not trying to show off our programming prowess. We're just trying to get what works best. So I'd find myself doing a lot of things like that kind of thing. Not complicated at all, other than just making sure you have the exact right pad in place. And the right piano, of course. Strikes, this is a fun one. Perfect for accents. I had to put this one in just because it's good. Lady Madonna piano. But it's really helpful for a certain kind of accent point. Piano and upright. Really nice. And again, some options here, maybe you don't use them. maybe you don't use them very often, but they're nice to have. Or like a piano with a big brass. Maybe that's a great layer. A felt upright. Lots of sound. I'm going to skip a few here just so for time's sake. Nice little texture thing you can add there. If somebody's playing like an acoustic guitar, you could play something like over him or her finger picking. Gentle. So here's an electric piano. When the worship leader's like, hey, guitar player's sick, can you do something? That might be the patch. We've all been there. Again, you're not going to use that a lot, but it's nice to have that as one option. Electric pianos. And I've tried to create very specific genre stuff. Like this is something I've heard on a few worship songs. You would maybe never play this outside of a worship scenario. Who knows? But it's really nice to have for those few songs. If you're a gospel player, that's probably in your wheelhouse a little more. I don't play much gospel, so that's not my thing, but that's a nice layer you could put against an electric guitar, have a really nice space. And these are just tweaked, but you also can add in parts, of course. So like here, there's a calm pad. So you can quickly change based on your worship leader or music director. Yeah, Wurlitzer. I wish this would come back in church more. This is more if you're doing like a roots rock type, like Mac Powell, Third Day. You're going to have something like that. I played with Mac and I have actually used this patch on a Nord Stage 3 with him. And that's the kind of thing you want to do. Few different looks that you can go there. Digigrand. Another gospel-y. And then of course you can turn on your organ. And that's not my wheelhouse, but boy, it's fun to play. another gospel related thing. Maybe you're covering Amy Grant circa 1988 or something. You got all those options. And depending on the church you go to, you may never use that. But it's really nice to have, and I'll keep saying that. Legato strings, like if you're trying to cover, a string part, like you're going to be able to do it with style. Pluck. Maybe you have a comedy moment on stage. I don't know. It's nice to have it, though. If you're trying to cover Entertaining Angels by the Newsboys, you have the patch. Very cinematic one here. Solo violin. Solo cello. Made a lot more believable if you use the expression pedal. French horn. I have actually used a French horn in worship before, but it's got this really low tone. And if you layer it up with the piano, it can create a massive stereo field there for you. Same with orchestral brass. Gospel horns. If you're playing aux keys, there's your sound for the brass. Another gospel sound for you. Whistle. There's been a couple situations where you need that. Then we have some splits. We got a bass in the left, a piano in the right. These are for moments when your bass player does not show up, or he shows up and he's never heard the music. You can limp through a practice with that. And I'm not going to name names, but that has happened to me. Same with that one. Upright bass, maybe you do a Christmas party, like you got something you can play. Acoustic guitar, for that moment that you either need to help a guitar player, like layer up something, or you're covering a 2000s a rap song. Nylon guitar for Christmas. Banjo for those roots moments. If you're covering We the Kingdom song or something. Harp, Christmas time. Tubular bells, another Christmas. glockenspiel, organ, which is cathedral organ. Another cathedral organ. For your traditional service, maybe the 6 a.m. service where the grandmas show up, you can do the traditional stuff for them. A nice accordion sound. Pump organ. Which is another one that you can kind of layer behind stuff and it sounds so good. This might make a great intro. Something like this, like. It almost turns on into like a pad behind it there. For when you need to cover It's a Beautiful Day by U2 or Strawberry Fields. It's a great texture though for just any song, seriously. Those are so cool. And when I'm recording here in Nashville in the studio, I will layer a lot of mellotron sounds underneath worship songs. And it's really interesting how often that works. There you could get a little bit of synth work going on. Again, there's not a lot of options when it comes to a Nord Electro 6. That's the one place this one struggles. But it's, in a worship scenario, you're not using that often. Unless you're playing aux keys. And here's the start of all the pads. If you're an aux keys player, there's your pads for you. You can always adjust the volume here too. Like this one might be a little quiet. I'll just bring up the volume. And I've just made sure there's tons of headroom. So you can bring it up. It was right about here. You have a full 10 dB of gain to add here. So you're never going to run out of headroom, which is very important when you're playing live and not wanting to just ride this volume control all the time. And that is it.
And that is the Nord Electro 6 Worship Collection. If you'd like to know more about this or to potentially get a copy for yourself or your church, go to patchfoundry.com/electro6. Thanks so much.